Silence beneath the skin. The rain had started early in the afternoon, but by evening it had transformed into an endless, heavy drumming. Drops beat against the windshield of Anna's small car so densely that her headlights were snuffed out like candle flames in a fog. The country roads stretched like a black ribbon through forests where every movement was swallowed by the wind. Anna had taken the wrong turn, there was no doubt about it. Her GPS showed nothing but a gray void, no roads, no towns. She pressed harder on the gas pedal, even though the windshield wipers could barely keep up. Then, a sign on the side of the road, white, faded, half overgrown, Ravenhurst Inn, 1.2 kilometers. It was the first sign of life in an hour. She desperately needed a place to warm up, perhaps a phone, so she turned off the road. The path led to a house that only emerged from the rain at the last moment. 3 stories, Victorian, dark brown, with a wide veranda wrapped around the facade. No lights in the windows, just a single, faint glow over the door. Anna got out. The rain was like a cold hand on the back of her neck. As she climbed the stairs to the veranda, the wood creaked under her steps. She was about to look for a doorbell when the door opened on its own. A man stood in the hallway, slender, about 45, with a pale face and long, straight hair. His eyes seemed too big and too alert for this time of night. "You're soaked to the bone," he said, his tone wavering between concern and something indistinct. "Come inside. The weather out here, it swallows you whole." Anna hesitated, but the rain drove her inside. Inside, it smelled of old wood and a hint of disinfectant. To the right, a narrow corridor led to a drawing room. To the left, stairs went up. Furniture stood everywhere, as if it hadn't been used, but merely arranged. "I'm Mr. Halloran," the man said, "the owner. We don't get many guests, especially not this late." He led her to a small office where a dusty guest book lay on the counter. She signed her name. When he read it, his finger lingered briefly on the line. "Anna Keller." His voice softened. "That's a beautiful name." She forced a smile. The room he gave her was at the end of the second floor. The corridor was narrow, the carpet faded, and at regular intervals, old photographs hung on the walls. Faded portraits of people whose gazes seemed to follow the viewer directly. "If you need anything, just call for me. But don't go to the 3rd floor. It's not safe." Before she could ask why, he was gone. Anna couldn't sleep that night. The rain had quieted, but now she heard a different sound. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, not in the hallway, but above her. The 3rd floor. Each time she thought the steps had stopped, they began again. Then, a long scratching, like fingernails on wood. Anna sat up in bed, her heart pounding. Was it just the wind? Or was there someone up there? Around 3 o'clock, she couldn't take it anymore. She opened the door a crack and listened. The hallway was empty. The air was still, yet the creaking from above returned. Her bare feet sank into the soft carpet as she walked to the stairwell. A single light bulb buzzed in the hall. The path upstairs was not blocked, no lock, no sign. Just silence, waiting for something. She placed one foot on the first step. The wood groaned, and immediately the steps above ceased. "You shouldn't go up there." The voice behind her made her spin around. Mr. Halloran stood in the shadows, only the faint light grazing his face. He was no longer smiling. "It's not safe for you," he repeated, and this time it was not a warning, but a command. But before she could answer, a sound came from above. Not a step, not a scratch. A whisper. Her own name. Anna felt the cold from the stairs creep into her legs. The man in front of her didn't move, his silhouette blocking the narrow corridor. The rain outside had stopped completely, but the silence that followed was even heavier. "Who is up there?" Her voice was fragile, but not a whisper. Halloran tilted his head as if he didn't understand her question. Then he smiled curtly. "No one, not for years." He stepped closer, so quietly that his footsteps were barely audible. "Go to sleep, Miss Keller. Some noises are not for you." Anna backed away. Something in his voice made it clear that he didn't want to continue this discussion. She locked her door and got into bed, but this time she hardly dared to close her eyes. The next morning came slowly. The light filtering through the curtain was gray as wet paper. Anna walked down the hall to the dining room. A woman in a floral dress stood behind a sideboard, polishing cups. "Good morning," the woman said without looking up. Her voice was warm but distant. "I'm Mrs. Finch. I sometimes help here." Anna sat down. Coffee, which tasted strongly of metal, was already on the table. While Mrs. Finch cut bread, she cast quick glances at Anna, as if she wanted to say something, but then decided against it. "You know," Anna began, "I heard footsteps last night, on the 3rd floor." Mrs. Finch froze. The knife in her hand was held as if frozen. "Then you're lucky you weren't up there." She said it in almost a whisper, her eyes anxiously darting toward the kitchen door. "Mr. Halloran doesn't like people asking questions." After breakfast, Anna decided to explore the grounds. Behind the house, a neglected garden stretched out. Trees stood like frozen figures, and the grass reached almost to her hips. At the end of the garden was a small outbuilding, a shed or a garage. The door was secured with a rusty chain, but a gap allowed a glimpse inside. Something was hanging on the wall. It looked like a photo wall, full of Polaroids. She recognized faces, blurred, out of focus. Some were old black and white photos, others were in color. Some of them seemed alarmingly recent. Anna stepped back. A crack behind her made her spin around. Halloran stood a few meters away, motionless, his hands in his coat pockets. "This is not a place for guests," he said calmly. "You'd better go inside." In the lounge later, another man was sitting. He was tall, with a thick beard and eyes that seemed to be sizing everything up. He introduced himself as Detective Marlowe. "Privately hired," he said casually, "nothing official." Anna felt he was getting at something. "You're not the only one staying here," he continued, "and you should know, in the last 5 years, 3 people have disappeared. All of them were last seen here." He looked at her for a long time, as if to see if she could process the information. "If you're smart, you'll leave tonight. But maybe you'd be interested to know that the 3rd floor was locked every time back then." Night came faster than expected. Anna was heading to her room when she met Mrs. Finch on the stairs. The woman seemed tense, as if she hadn't breathed all day. "If you hear something tonight, no matter what, don't open the door." She walked on without an explanation. Around midnight, it started again. Footsteps, this time faster, more impatient. Something fell over, a dull thud. Then silence. Anna sat in the dark, her ear to the door. Suddenly, 3 quiet taps, right on her side of the hall. Then a whispering voice. Not Halloran's, not Mrs. Finch's. "Help me." As Anna reached for the doorknob, the power went out. Anna stood in the dark, her heart racing. The house seemed to breathe, the wood soaking up the night's moisture. The hallway was completely black, with only a narrow strip of moonlight falling through a tall window at the end of the corridor. "Help me." The voice was closer now. She felt her way to the door, opening it a crack, and immediately smelled something, a sharp, metallic odor that didn't belong. "Who's there?" Her voice was barely a croak. No answer, only a soft pattering that moved away, up the stairs, to the 3rd floor. Anna followed, slowly, each step creaking like a telltale sign. When she reached the top, she felt a gust of cold air. The door to the 3rd floor was ajar. A deep voice sounded behind her. "You're not seriously going up there, are you?" Detective Marlowe stood there, a small flashlight in his hand. His eyes were alert, but also, in a strange way, restless. "I told you people disappear here. You're hearing voices because someone wants you to open the door. The question is, who?" He briefly shone his light into the corridor, then back at her. "And if it's not Halloran, then—" He stopped short. "Come on, let's go downstairs." But downstairs, Halloran was gone. Mrs. Finch was gone too. Only something new lay on the counter in the entrance area, a key ring, old, with a brass tag that read 3. Anna grabbed it before Marlowe could say anything. The key was cold, as if it had been outside all night. Later in her room, while Marlowe was supposedly doing a patrol, Anna held the key in her hand. She couldn't wait any longer. Slowly, she went back upstairs. The third-floor door opened with difficulty, as if the wood had swollen with moisture. Behind it was a corridor, narrower than the others, the walls crooked, as if the house was breathing here. Photos hung here too, but these were different, blurry, skewed, some only half-developed. The last photo on the wall showed a hallway, this very hallway, with a figure at the end, blurry but distinct. A woman with wet hair, her hands raised as if warding something off. A sound made her jump. From behind a door at the end of the hall came a soft whimpering. Anna moved towards it, her hand on the doorknob, and froze. A shadow flitted past the bottom of the door, too fast to be a person. Then it became deathly silent. "Miss Keller." Halloran's voice came from behind her. "I warned you." He stood there, his hands empty, but his gaze was not empty. He looked almost pitying. Sometimes the voices don't come from the living. A loud bang interrupted him, somewhere on the ground floor. Halloran spun around and ran off. Anna seized the moment, opened the door at the end of the hall, and stepped inside. The room was small, the air stale. In one corner sat a chair with a rope on it, as if it had been hastily tossed aside. On the wall was a cabinet. She slowly opened it and found herself staring back. A dozen photos, all of her, taken from different angles since the moment she had entered the inn yesterday. Some even from before her arrival, at the gas station on the country road. And at the very back, wedged between the pictures, was another Polaroid. It showed Anna asleep in her bed tonight. Anna stared at the picture until her fingers grew damp. The photo was fresh, the edges not yet completely dry. Someone had been in her room tonight. A noise in the hallway made her jump. Footsteps, this time hurried, almost stumbling. The door flew open, and Mrs. Finch stood in the frame, her eyes wide with terror. "You're not supposed to be here!" Her voice was a hiss, more fear than anger. She reached for Anna's arm, but Anna pulled away. "What's going on here? Who took these photos?" Mrs. Finch opened her mouth as if to say something, but her gaze shifted over Anna's shoulder, to the cabinet. Her already pale face went even paler. "Oh, God, so you don't know yet?" Before Anna could ask, a scream echoed from downstairs, deep, raw, followed shortly by the sound of breaking glass. Mrs. Finch ran for the stairs, and Anna followed. Downstairs in the foyer, Detective Marlowe stood. His jacket was torn open, and his hand was covered in blood. "Halloran is gone," he gasped, "and he took the phones with him." "What happened?" Anna asked. "He attacked me. He knew I was onto him. We have to get out of here." He glanced at Mrs. Finch. "You too, or do you want to go down with him?" Mrs. Finch gave a dry laugh. "You think you know the rules here, Detective? You have no idea." Her voice was now firm, sharp as a knife. "I was here long before Halloran owned this place, and I'll be here when he leaves. Some things are older than owners, older than you or me." Anna shivered. "What are you talking about?" Mrs. Finch stepped closer, whispering, "It's not Halloran you should be afraid of." Then she turned away and disappeared down the back corridor. Marlowe grabbed Anna's arm. "She's playing her own game. Don't listen to her. We need to find Halloran before he—" He stopped short as something heavy crashed to the floor above them. Anna knew instantly. 3rd floor. This time they both went up, Marlowe in the lead with his flashlight. The corridor was empty, but at the end, the door to the small room where Anna had found the photos stood open. Inside, no cabinet anymore, just a bare wall. "That was here," Anna stammered, "just a moment ago." Marlowe eyed her briefly, then the room. "Maybe you just thought you saw something." Anna took a step back. "What do you mean?" He gave a curt smile. "I just mean, sometimes fear makes you blind. Or receptive." A crack in the hallway made them both turn around. Halloran stood at the other end. He didn't look injured, no blood, no hurry. "You should both leave," he said softly. "It's too late to stop it." "Stop what?" Anna asked. Halloran took a step closer, lowering his voice. "It wants you, and if you stay, it will get you." Marlowe stepped forward, reaching for his weapon, and at that moment, the flashlight flickered. For a heartbeat, the hallway was completely dark. When the light came back on, Halloran was gone. Only a voice remained, whispering from the darkness. "Anna, you've been here before." "You've been here before." The words echoed in Anna's head as she stood in the silent corridor. Marlowe said nothing, his gaze fixed on her as if to gauge her reaction. That's nonsense," she whispered, more to herself than to him. But inside, something clenched, a cold premonition that was a feeling, not a thought. She and Marlowe went back downstairs. The lounge was in a half-light. The fire in the fireplace burned down as if no one had ever lit it. An open guest book lay on the table. Anna stopped. This wasn't open before. Marlowe stepped closer, flipping through the pages. The pages were yellowed and old, names carefully entered, and then she saw it. Anna Keller, date November 14th. Not today. Exactly 5 years ago. "That must be a mistake," she whispered, but her handwriting was unmistakable. "So?" Marlowe's voice was calm, almost too calm. "Maybe you really have been here before." The familiar use of "you" hit her like a blow. He was no longer speaking distantly, no longer like a stranger. "Why are you talking like that?" she asked. He smiled. "Because I know you, Anna, longer than you think." A sound from the back corridor made them both turn around. Footsteps, slow and heavy, this time not from above, but from a locked side passage. The door at the end creaked open, and Mrs. Finch stepped out. Her apron was stained with blood. In her hand, she held an old kitchen knife, the blade dull but slick. "It won't wait," she said tonelessly, "and it's hungry." Anna backed away until her back hit the fireplace. Marlowe reached for his belt. His weapon was gone. "What have you done?" he yelled. Mrs. Finch smiled coldly. "I tidied up." Halloran always hesitated. But this time it can't escape. "What it?" Anna screamed. Finch's gaze locked onto her, like a finger pressing into a wound. "You know exactly what I'm talking about." Anna wanted to reply, but at that moment, the light in the room flickered. A shadow crawled up the wall, long and restless, as if it weren't attached to a person. It glided between them, silently, and clung to the ceiling like an inverted silhouette. "It's here," Mrs. Finch whispered, with a mix of reverence and fear. "And it's choosing again." The shadow moved. Slowly, almost playfully, it slid down the wall, directly towards Anna. She backed away, snatching the guest book from the table without knowing why. A loose page fell out. On it, a photo of her, this time much older. Beneath it, in shaky handwriting, "You promised to come back." Marlowe grabbed her arm. "If you stay here, you're lost. If you come with me, you have to tell me everything, now." "I don't know anything," she gasped. "Oh, yes, you do," he said softly. "But you took it from yourself, and someone here wants you to remember." A loud crash from the front hall made the floor beneath them tremble. As they rushed there, they saw the front door wide open. The rain had started again. On the veranda stood Halloran, drenched, a vacant look in his eyes. "It has chosen," he said, "and it has spoken your name." The rain outside lashed against the veranda like 1,000 tiny fists. Halloran stood there like a statue, water streaming down his face, yet he didn't blink. Anna felt her fingers turn to ice. What do you mean by that? Halloran took a step into the light. It has found you again. Stop with this nonsense, Marlowe interjected. You're just playing a crooked game to scare her. I'm not playing anything, Halloran replied quietly. She was here 5 years ago, and she did something the house can't forget. Anna wanted to protest, but a picture suddenly flickered in her mind's eye. A dark room, a woman tied to a chair, and her own hands tying a rope. The shock made her take a step back. No, that's not real. Memories are like doors, Halloran said. Sometimes you lock them because you think it's safer, but this house, it opens them. A scream cut through the moment. Mrs. Finch. It came from the back corridor. They ran towards it. The air was thick with the smell of damp wood and something sweet. In the narrow hallway, they found her, on the floor, hands twitching as if she were grasping at something invisible. It was here, she gasped, her eyes rolling back. It touched my face. Marlowe knelt beside her, but she grabbed Anna's hand with surprising strength. Remember, Anna, remember before it takes you. Then she collapsed, unconscious. We have to get out of here, Marlowe said, his voice now noticeably more strained. That thing, whatever it is, wants you, and Halloran seems to be feeding it. Wrong, Halloran's voice came from the shadows. I'm trying to keep it away, but she, he pointed at Mrs. Finch, she already let it in. Anna knelt next to the unconscious Finch. Something warm dripped onto the back of her hand. She looked up. On the ceiling above them hung a photo, pinned with a nail. Herself, again, but this time she was in the garden behind the house, in the pouring rain. Her eyes were closed, her mouth slightly open, as if she were talking to someone who wasn't there. Beneath it, in shaky handwriting, it answered you back then. How did that get up there? She whispered. Halloran sighed, as if he were bone-tired. Because the house keeps everything, every word, every deed, every face, and sometimes it gives something back. I don't believe a word of this ghost story, Marlowe snarled, but someone here is messing with her, and I swear when I find out who— He stopped as the lights in the entire house went out. A sound began, first soft, then louder. Whispering, dozens of voices speaking all at once. Anna pressed her hands over her ears, but it didn't help. Some of the voices were her own. It remembers you, Halloran said, and it wants to see you finished. The whispering gave way to a single sound, the creaking of a door. The 3rd floor. It wants you to go up, Halloran said, and if you don't, it will come to you. The 3rd floor waited like an open maw. Anna stood at the foot of the stairs, her heart hammering in her chest like a jackhammer. Halloran kept his distance, as if he didn't want to touch her, while Marlowe stood right behind her, his hand on her back. Go, he said curtly. She lifted her foot, placing it on the first step. The wood gave way with a soft creak, as if under a weight that wasn't there. When she reached the top, the air smelled different. Not of dust or wood, but of something cold and clean, like a hospital room. The narrow hallway she had seen last time was gone. Instead, she stood in a long, brightly lit corridor. White tiles, doors with small windows, a distant hum like fluorescent lights. That is impossible, Anna muttered. That wasn't here before. A door stood open. Behind it, a room, bare except for a metal chair in the center. As she entered, she heard the sound, a quiet click, like a camera. She turned around. Behind the door stood a man in a white coat, his face blurred as if in a poorly developed photo. "Sit down, Miss Keller," he said. "We'll continue where we left off." Anna stumbled backward, bumping against the chair. For a moment, it felt as if the room was growing darker, as if the light was receding. Images flashed through her mind. Herself, younger, in that chair. Halloran, no older, no younger, standing in the background. A voice, whispering the same sentence over and over. Tell them. I was here, she gasped. The clicking sound again. But this time it came from her pocket. She reached in and pulled out a Polaroid. On it, her, in this room, on this chair, taken from the perspective of where she was standing now. On the back, you didn't let him go back then. A cold breath brushed the back of her neck. Anna, the voice behind her said. She turned around and faced Marlowe. His face looked softer, almost pitying. We both know why you're here, but you have to remember before it tells you. Otherwise, your mind won't be your own anymore. What do you mean by it? The thing you brought here back then. A sharp clinking sound made her flinch. The walls around her flickered. For a split second, the sterile hallway was the narrow, crooked corridor of the Ravenhurst Inn again. Then fluorescent light again. Then wood again. It switched back and forth like a bad connection, and with each change, something was different. The photos on the walls, the smell, even the temperature of the air. At the end of the hall, a door opened by itself. Behind it was a room in semi-darkness. In the center, another chair. Above it, on the ceiling, hung dozens of photos, all of Anna, all from different years. Some looked so old they couldn't possibly exist. And between the photos, something swayed in the draft. A key. That's it, whispered Halloran, who had suddenly appeared behind her. The key you took back then. Give it back, and it might let you go. Anna stepped closer to the chair. The key dangled just inches out of her reach, attached to a thin wire that barely moved. Her fingertips touched the cold metal. At that moment, she heard the click of a camera. She spun around. Marlowe stood in the doorway. No flashlight, no weapon, just a small black camera in his hand. "What is the key for?" Anna asked, her voice strained. Marlowe looked at her for a long time, then said, "For the only door you didn't open back then." He stepped into the room, the camera loose in his hand. "And this time, you will." "Why should I?" "Because otherwise, we'll never get out." "We?" Anna fixed her gaze on him. "Or you?" Marlowe gave a wry smile. Maybe both, maybe neither. Halloran appeared behind him, silent as a shadow. "Leave her alone," he said. "She's done enough." "Done enough?" Anna snapped at him. "I have no idea what you're talking about. I just want to get out of here." "And that's exactly what won't happen," Halloran replied calmly. "Not until you remember what happened in this house." A muffled sound from the hallway interrupted them. Heavy, rhythmic, like footsteps on rotten wood. All three of them froze. The sounds were getting closer. "Go," Marlowe whispered. "Take the key." Anna reached for it. The metal was ice cold, almost painful in her hand. The moment she detached it, the footsteps stopped. Then, a voice, deep and raspy, from the hallway. "Anna, open the door." She ran out, the key clutched tightly in her hand. The hallway was the old, crooked corridor of the third floor again. Only one door was different. Painted black, no handle, just a small keyhole. "That's it," Halloran said softly. "You know what's behind it." "I don't know." "Yes, you do," he countered, "and that's why you closed it back then." Marlowe stepped forward. "Unlock it. Let's end this." Anna hesitated. Every instinct in her screamed to run away, but she put the key in the lock. It fit. A soft click. The door opened slowly. Behind it was not a room, but a narrow passage leading into the depths. The walls were raw, the light flickered, and at the very end she saw a figure. A woman tied to a chair. Her head was hanging forward, her hair wet, as if she had just been brought in from the rain. "That's not real," Anna whispered. "That's not—" The woman slowly lifted her head. Anna saw her own face. Anna stood frozen to the spot. The corridor smelled of wet stone and metal. Every drop that fell somewhere in the darkness echoed back to her. The woman at the end, her own face, slowly lifted her head. It was no reflection. Her skin was paler, with dark shadows under her eyes and chapped lips, and her eyes, they rested on Anna with a painful stillness. "You've come back," the voice said. It was exactly her voice, but deeper, as if she hadn't spoken for weeks. "That can't be real," Anna murmured. Behind her, Halloran stood motionless. Marlowe moved closer, but he kept his distance, as if the corridor itself was a boundary he didn't want to cross. "Who are you?" Anna asked. "I'm you," came the answer without hesitation. "The one who stayed." Anna felt her stomach clench. What does that mean? "You left back then, and you left me here, with him." The woman's gaze briefly shifted past Anna to Halloran. "Nonsense," Halloran interrupted. "This is an act. She's using your face." "Or he's lying," the woman said calmly, "just like he lied back then." "Enough," Marlowe stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Whoever you are, stop the games." The woman laughed softly. "You should know better. Nothing is a game in this house. You played your part too, don't you remember?" Marlowe flinched, almost imperceptibly. Anna took a step into the corridor. The floorboards creaked under her weight. "If you really are me, then tell me what happened here." The woman stared at her for a long time. "You know, you're just afraid to say it." Then she leaned forward slightly. 3 nights, a guest, you and he alone on the 3rd floor, and then she fell silent. Anna felt her head pound as something inside her fought against the memory. "We're leaving," Halloran said suddenly. "Now." He stepped into the corridor, grabbing Anna's arm, and at that very moment, the light flickered. When it became steady again, the chair at the end was empty. Only the ropes remained, loose, as if they had just been undone. Where did she go? Marlowe tore the door open completely, shining a flashlight inside. Nothing. The corridor ended at a bare wall. Anna stood there breathless, the key still in her hand. "I saw her," she whispered. "I saw myself." Halloran shook his head. "The house only shows you what you fear the most." "Or it's showing me what I did," Anna countered. Suddenly, a crashing sound came from downstairs. Something heavy had fallen over. Then footsteps, this time clearly human, hurried through the ground floor. "There's someone else here," Marlowe said. "Someone we haven't seen." The thudding didn't come again. Just the footsteps, heavy and hurried, then a door slamming shut downstairs. Marlowe drew his weapon. Down. Anna felt a cold sweat on her back. Something in her resisted returning to the lower part of the house, not after that encounter. But the alternative, staying up here alone, was worse. Descending the stairs, the house felt like a different version of itself. The shadows were longer, the silence denser. The reception area was in a half-light. A chair was overturned, a lamp shattered. "See?" Halloran whispered. "Someone was looking for something here." Marlowe knelt, examining the shards. Or he found something and left. He looked at Anna. "You should tell me if there's anything here that could be stolen. Something valuable." "I don't know," she replied. "I was only a guest here." "Just a guest?" he repeated softly, as if testing the word's truthfulness. A quiet creak came from the dining room. Marlowe raised a hand, motioning for them to wait, and pushed the door open. In the faint beam of the flashlight, a figure emerged, hunched over, with hands inside an old buffet cabinet. A tall man in a wet coat. When the light hit him, he lifted his head. Anna drew in a sharp breath. She knew that face. "My God," she whispered, you were the guest." The man blinked. "And you are back." He spoke as if he had been expecting her. "Who are you?" Marlowe stepped closer, weapon at the ready. The man slowly straightened up. Someone who should never have stayed here, and someone who should never have been allowed to leave. His gaze remained fixed on Anna. "You don't remember, do you?" Anna shook her head. I don't know what you're talking about." "You'll know," the man said, "when you enter the basement." Halloran grabbed his arm. "The basement is sealed." "Not anymore." The man gave a thin smile. "You got the key." Anna felt her hand unconsciously tighten around the key handle. Suddenly, the wind slammed a loose window shutter against the wall, the bang echoing through the entire house. Marlowe tore his gaze from the man, and in that second, the men used the distraction. With surprising speed, he shoved Halloran aside and rushed toward the back door. "After him," Marlowe called, and all three of them gave chase. But when they reached the back door, it was only ajar. Beyond it, darkness, rain, no trace of footsteps. Just the certainty that he was still somewhere in the house and knew the way to the basement. Anna felt her heart beat faster. Maybe she didn't want to go to the basement. Maybe it was the last place she should ever be. But deep within her was another certainty. If she didn't, she would never find out what really happened back then. The rain outside lashed down like an endless clock, ticking only in the seconds of waiting. Marlowe leaned against the doorframe, breathing shallowly. If he reaches the basement before we do, we'll never see him again, and we won't know what he takes with him. Anna stared at the key in her hand. It had grown heavier, or maybe it was just the weight of the decision it represented. They followed the hall, past the dining rooms, deeper into the house. The walls here were damp, the wallpaper peeling in long strips. At the end of the corridor was a narrow door. No sign, no handle, just a lock. "Is this it?" Halloran asked. "Yes," Anna answered, without hesitation. The lock opened with a slow, dull click. Behind the door was a staircase leading into total blackness. The air smelled of mold, but beneath that was something else, metallic, pungent, as if the house had an open wound down here. Marlowe switched on his flashlight. "I'll go first." "No," Anna said. "I will." He eyed her briefly, then shrugged. "Your risk." The steps didn't creak. They were made of old stone, worn smooth as if by many years of secret footsteps. With every step down, the sound of the rain grew quieter, and a deep, heavy silence filled the space. "There's a draft down there," Halloran whispered. "There's an exit." "Or an entrance," Marlowe countered. At the foot of the stairs, a narrow passage spread out, so low that Anna had to duck her head. To the left and right were old crates, rotted pieces of furniture, shattered picture frames. At the very end, a faint light was burning. They moved closer. The light came from a bare light bulb hanging over a narrow table. On it, an old tape recorder. Beside it lay several cassettes. All were labeled, and all bore the same name, Anna Keller. Anna reached for the first cassette. Her fingers trembled. That's my name." "We know," Marlowe said curtly. "Play it." The tape hissed, then a voice, her voice, only older, wearier. "He said I should stay, that I couldn't leave him alone. And then he took the knife." Anna let the cassette fall. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Before anyone could speak, a rustling came from the darkness behind the crates. Slowly, the man from the dining room, the guest, emerged. He looked at the tape recorder, then at Anna. "Now you know why you left back then," he said, "and why you would have been better off never coming back." The dripping came first, a quiet, rhythmic sound somewhere deeper in the basement that slipped in between Anna's heartbeats. It smelled of old water, rust, and blood. The man stepped closer until the dim light of the bare bulb carved his face from the shadows. "You were told it was an accident." His gaze wandered to the cassettes. "But accidents don't leave behind recordings like these." Marlowe raised his weapon. "Who are you? Out with it." The man laughed quietly. "I'm the only one here who knows the truth, and if you want her to know it, let me talk." "Talk," Anna said. He nodded slowly. "It was 3 years ago. You were a guest in room 3. I was in the room next door. And then there was him, the caretaker." His voice grew quieter. "He brought people to the basement at night, not for money, not out of necessity, just to see how long they would still hope." Anna felt her throat go dry. "And I?" "You saw it, all of it, and you ran upstairs without looking back." The air in the basement became heavier, denser, as if the house itself were listening. "That's not true," Anna whispered. "I would have helped." "You tried to call the police," he interrupted her, "but he was faster. And then you did what was necessary." "What does that mean?" Marlowe took a step forward. The man pointed to a crate in the back of the room. "Open it." Halloran knelt down, pulled up the lid, and froze. Inside lay faded clothes, shoes, and on top, a knife. The metal was dull, but a dark brown crust clung to the blade that the rust hadn't completely covered. "That one's yours," the man said to Anna. She shook her head violently. "No, no, that can't be." Suddenly, a crack came from the wood of them. Footsteps. Not just one, several. Marlowe raised his hand for silence as the light of the bulb began to flicker. "We're not alone down here," Halloran said quietly. "And whoever that is, they're not coming to help us." The steps grew heavier, slower, like the steady pounding of a heart that didn't belong to her. They came down the stairs, each step making the basement floor tremble slightly. Marlowe pulled Anna behind him, the flashlight tight in one hand, his weapon in the other. "When I say run, then—" "No," she interrupted him. "I'm not running anymore." The light of the bulb above the tape recorder flickered in hurried pulses, as if it knew it was about to go out. Then a silhouette appeared in the stairwell. Tall, broad, the face remained in shadow. "Who's there?" Marlowe called out. No answer, just the slow, deliberate descent of the steps. Anna felt a cold shiver between her shoulder blades. Something about that movement was eerily familiar to her, too familiar. "That's him," she whispered. The man, the guest, took a step back, as if he didn't want to get caught in the crossfire. "You didn't really bury him, Anna." The figure reached the basement floor. In the flash of the flickering bulb, a metallic shimmer glided over something in his hand. A shovel, old and dented, with dried mud on the edge. "That's enough," Marlowe called out, raising his weapon. "Not another step." The figure stopped, its head tilted slightly. Then, in a deep, scratchy voice, "Put the weapon down, or we'll start digging again." Anna didn't immediately understand what he meant. Then her gaze wandered to a dark spot in the furthest corner of the basement, where the ground looked disturbed, a pile of old earth, too fresh to simply be forgotten. The dripping started again, this time louder, faster. Anna could only hear the roar of blood in her ears. Images flickered in her head. A night, rain, a scream, the metallic weight in her hand, and then nothing. "What's in there?" Marlowe asked sharply. "Ask her," said the man with the shovel. Suddenly the light went out. The basement was in total blackness. And in that darkness, something moved. Not one person, several. The darkness was not just a lack of light. It was dense, almost physical. Anna's breath came too fast, and she could hear every heartbeat in her ears. Somewhere, water dripped, but closer, very close, someone was moving. "Don't talk," a voice whispered. She didn't know if it was Marlowe or someone else. A quiet scratching, metal on stone, the shovel, then the dull sound of earth being moved. Anna groped blindly beside her. Her hand touched cold skin, a wrist. It jerked back violently. Suddenly, wood creaked. A stack of crates tipped over, falling with a clatter to the floor. Dust and stale air rose to her nose. She heard a hurried gasp and quick footsteps that raced past her in the dark. "Anna!" Marlowe. His voice came from the left, or was it from behind? Then again, that other voice, deep and close to her ear. "You left him here back then, right here, and now you're bringing him back up." Something cold wrapped around her hand, a handle, firm, demanding. She was pulled forward, over uneven ground, until her knees hit something hard. The moldy smell hit her first, then the dull, sickening feeling of soft, wet soil under her fingers. "Dig," the voice whispered. "No," she gasped. A short, sharp sound, metal being plunged into the ground. "Then we'll dig for you." In the distance, something clicked, a lighter. For a tiny moment, a weak flame illuminated the scene. The shovel, halfway in the ground, a hand, bony and dirty, that jutted out of the earth. Then it was dark again. From somewhere behind her came Marlowe's voice, now hoarse. "Anna, run!" But she knew it was too late. Not because she couldn't, but because she had a feeling she still had to see something before she left. The smell had gotten worse. Not just mold and earth, something else, something sweet, that settled in her lungs and made breathing difficult. Anna knelt in the dark, her knees in the cold muck, while the grip on her arm tightened. "You left him here," the voice repeated. She recognized it now. Not the man from the stairwell, not Marlowe, herself. It was her own voice, only deeper, rougher, older. That's not possible," she whispered. The lighter flared up again, this time closer to her face. The light drew crude shadows on a wall, and in those shadows, she saw her silhouette, bent over, with a shovel in her hand. "See," the voice said, "it was you all along." From the other side of the basement came a dull impact. Someone had fallen. A gasping sound? Marlowe? Halloran? She couldn't place it. The lighter went out, and immediately a hand grabbed her hair, forcing her gaze down. The ground was churned up, and where the hand jutted from the earth, a part of a face was now visible, gray, bloated, the eye socket empty. "He didn't want to let you go," the voice whispered again, "so you did it, and then you ran away. Until today." Anna felt her fingers claw into the wet earth. Something in her wanted to dig, something else wanted to scream. A sound cut through the darkness, the metallic click of a weapon being chambered. "Let her go," Marlowe's voice, this time hard, unmistakable. The hand in her hair slowly released its grip. Footsteps receded until only silence remained. "Anna, come to me," Marlowe said. She stood up and stepped in something soft that gave way slightly under her foot. A brief flash of light, a flashlight. The beam fell to the floor, revealing that they were not alone in the basement. Between the crates, in the shadows, stood 4 more figures. Motionless, watching. The flashlight flickered, as if it couldn't decide for itself whether it wanted to see what stood before it. The 4 figures didn't move, but their heads were tilted slightly to the side, the way people do when they observe something incomprehensible. Marlowe stood close beside Anna, the weapon in his hand, his gaze fixed on the shadows. "Who the hell are you?" he asked. No answer, only a quiet, steady breathing that seemed to come from all sides. "Anna," one of them said finally, and her own voice broke like thin glass in her head. It was a woman's voice, warm and soft, but with a hint of something she couldn't name. "You have to finish it, otherwise it won't stop." Anna wanted to back away, but Marlowe held her firm. "Not a step back. They want you to move. That's exactly the trick." "No," a second figure contradicted her, this time a deep male voice. "The trick is that she's already done it." Suddenly, the basement changed. It wasn't loud, no sudden explosion, no tremor, and yet the room suddenly had different proportions. The walls moved closer, the air smelled more strongly of wet earth, and the floor they stood on gave way slightly, as if there was nothing solid beneath it. The 4 figures took half a step forward, and the flashlight's beam slid over their faces, or what was left of them. Features that were half familiar and half like clay figures someone had forgotten to finish molding. Anna couldn't breathe. "What do you want?" "Remembrance," the first figure said, "and then rest." Marlowe grabbed her tighter. "We're leaving now, immediately." But before he even took the first step, the basement door upstairs slammed shut, and they heard the sound of a bolt being slid into place. They were trapped. From the darkness came the scraping of the shawl again, and then, as if it had been a signal, the 4 figures simultaneously began to move. Slowly, unstoppable. The 4 figures came closer, silently, as if their feet were gliding over the floor. Marlowe raised his weapon, but Anna immediately felt it was pointless, not because he couldn't hit them, but because there was nothing to hit here that would disappear. The shadows crawled over her skin like cold. Every movement of the figures brought with it the smell of damp wood and rotting leaves, as if the basement had long been a grave. "It is time," the woman's voice said again. And now Anna saw clearly. The face of the first figure was her own, only older, with eyes in which there was no longer any color. "No," Anna whispered, but her voice didn't tremble with fear, but with the feeling of being caught. Behind her, Marlowe took a step back, his breath quickening. "Anna, what's going on here? Who are they?" "They are what I've forgotten," she said, and only now did she feel how much her hands were trembling. The flashlight's beam slid once more over the disturbed pile of earth in the furthest corner. The hand that jutted out was further uncovered, now up to the elbow. The arm was thin, the skin stretched like parchment over the bones. One of the figures knelt down, grabbed the shovel, and began to dig further, with slow, deliberate movements, as if it knew no one would stop it. Anna took a step forward. "Stop," she said. "Then you dig," the figure replied without looking up. Marlowe pushed himself between her and the pile. "This is sick. We're getting the police." "The police have already been here," the woman's voice answered. "They left because they found nothing. You know why." The floor under their feet made a strange grinding sound. Anna looked down. Fine cracks stretched across the concrete, and from them dark, damp earth seeped out, as if the basement floor itself were breathing. The four figures paused and looked at her. "Only you can uncover him completely," they said in a chorus. "Only then will it stop." Marlowe grabbed Anna's arm. "We're getting out of here right now." But she tore herself loose, knelt before the pile of earth and placed her hands in the wet ground. It was soft, too soft, and beneath it, she felt something smooth, round. A skull. Her fingers slid over the skull, fine-pored, smooth, cold, and yet she felt the indentations where eyes had once been. Something in her mind broke open like a rotten piece of wood. Back then, rain lashed against metal, a lone lamp illuminated the narrow corridor. He had screamed. She hadn't listened, only felt the metallic weight in her hand, the shovel, and the dull crack as he hit the ground. His face, half in shadow, half in light, was the last thing she ever wanted to see, so she had buried him, here. Back in the basement, she let go of the skull as if it had bitten her. Marlowe stood behind her, the weapon still raised, but his hand was trembling. "Anna, tell me that's not true." She wanted to lie, but in the darkness, the four figures stood like judges, motionless, incorruptible. "It was an accident," she whispered. "No," said her older version, "it was a choice." The cracks in the floor widened. The basement now smelled only of earth and decay. From below, a dull rumbling came, as if the room itself wanted to swallow them. Marlowe stepped back. "We're getting out of here, right now." But when he turned to the stairs, the four figures now stood there. They blocked the exit without moving. "Only one leaves," they said. "You decide which one." Anna felt Marlowe look at her, waiting, desperate. But her hands still lay on the earth, digging further, inch by inch, until the body was completely uncovered. The sight made the room grow colder. "It ends if you stay here," the voices whispered. "Then it will stop." Marlowe called her name, but his voice was distant, muffled. The darkness grew denser, and the air became heavy, sweetish. The figures stepped closer, until she felt them leaning over her. Anna placed the skull back in the grave, closed the earth over it, and sat on it, as if she were taking a place that had always belonged to her. Marlowe screamed, hit an invisible wall, but she could barely hear him anymore. Only silence remained, a silence that was deeply anchored in her chest. And when the flashlight's light finally went out, only the breathing of the earth could be heard.